Hello, welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. It's the last one of the year. Sam Turner, it's a New Year's Day special. It's also the last one of the decade.
Yes, Tom, it's an emotional time for all of us who've managed to navigate their way through a fifth decade.
Have you done the photos, the start and the end of the decade, the Sam Turner transition over the last 10 years?
Well, you can get those apps, can't you, on your phone nowadays that age you 10 or 20 years. I just got to look in the mirror for that, to be honest. So it's rather pointless, really. They're coming up with all these new fandangled apps that you can get for your iPhone to make you look older. I'll just, a couple more years working for the Mail does the trick for me. No damage.
Job done. Right, it's just the two of us for this New Year's Day special. We're going to be looking at the 6 ITV races. There are 4 from Cheltenham. There are 2 at Musselburgh as well. Some quite open handicaps and some tight little graded races as well. Don't forget, we're not going to be previewing it officially. We had a little chat about it before doing this. The New Year's Day Chase, which sees Album Photo return at Tremor, the race he returned in last year before going on to Gold Cup success. We couldn't actually find a play in it per se, but it's one you don't want to miss necessarily because it's quite an open little Gold Cup bet at the moment, which I wonder how that'll have an effect on it. But I think we should crack on, Sam, and start with the Dipper at Cheltenham, which is the 125 at Cheltenham. We now know we've got a field of 6 going forward for this, and the market is headed by Champ, unsurprisingly. Given what he's done so far this year, really what he's done throughout his career, and he wasn't exactly disgraced in being beaten in the Ballymore. He's odds on at the top of the market. Midnight Shadow is 5.0. Derry Under Carjack around about 6.5, and then you get stuck into the chunky double figures. The way we're doing this, we'll rattle through. If we've got a bet, great, and if we don't, we'll be quite honest. Personally, Sam, I don't know what you think about this race. Champ is a horse who I won't be supporting at Cheltenham. I just know I won't because of jumping frailties. I mean, at the festival here in a 6-runner field, for all I'm not going to get stuck in at his current price, he's a difficult horse to oppose on New Year's Day for me.
Why won't you support him at Cheltenham in March?
He just is so prone to the odd error, and the likes of Battle Over Doyen. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's double figures still currently. I can see I opposed him last year in the Ballymore for a few reasons, really. Age and thinking he might want more of a test. And look, that was just about right. He's just so prone to the odd error that he might not be for me. I know with the RSA, quite often you get a really small field, and you quite often get a well-supported favourite going off and winning it. So it might depend on the field size, but as it stands currently, he's not a horse I'd want to be with at the festival, but I think he'll win on New Year's Day.
That's interesting you say that, really, because I don't think he's jumped too badly myself. I haven't watched either of his rounds and thought, crikey, he's abysmal. I want to lay him at any given opportunity. I thought he did very well to win last time, considering Barry nearly went the wrong side of the rail, and he did very well to quicken up and beat Black Hop. He's hardly let the form down with a really good run over the festive period. So I think that's very strong form, and you look back through Champ's 2 wins over fences, and it is stacking up quite nicely behind him. I thought Derry Under Carjack ran particularly well at Newbury last time. I think he's one for probably the novice handicap. I'm not sure whether he'll have enough about him to reverse the placings. I'm not sure Connections, off a mark of 146 already, would want him to reverse placings particularly. I think they'd just be happy to hunt round, finish 5 lengths behind Champ again, perhaps get a pound or 2 and make sure that they get into the novice handicap at the Cheltenham Festival. So how competitive this is going to be, I don't know. Sorry.
Can I come back at you on that? Just where do you think Derry Under Carjack is a horse I half had in mind for going up to 3 miles? Alan King's got a record of running and winning at the start of the decade. The Ultima with novices. He used to do that quite a lot, and he again. Talk Is Cheap was a novice for that race, I thought, last year, for it didn't quite work out, and he ended up not going for it. Do you think there's any chance this horse would get 3, or do you think they'll stick to 2.5 with him and try and get him in that novice handicap, as you say?
I just thought he showed a good bit of toe and a bit of pace at Newbury. I don't know whether 3 would be, he was sort of campaigned over a bit shorter over hurdles, 2, those sort of trips. Whether he wants 3 yet or not, I don't know. He might well do. I'm not saying he can't. I haven't been through his pedigree and looked at his family relations to see whether 3 would be, a viable option for him. But I can see where you're coming from. I just thought immediately after that Newbury race that the novice handicap would be the race for him, just the way he travelled and jumped that day, and just wasn't quite strong enough to withhold the likes of Blackop and Champ, who were really strong stayers at the trip. So he's a horse I really like, and I'm very much going to keep an open mind about him going forward as well. So I wonder whether he's just having a little bit of a look-see tomorrow, just to see whether, you know, he jumps around Cheltenham okay, has a nice clean round, and perhaps looking with, you know, 6 or 8 weeks time, that would be his primary objective, I would think.
So as far as I agree with you on Champ's form, and you're quite pro him, but would you be tucking in at his current price, or
no, obviously not. I mean, it's, you know, it's not exactly a working man's price, is it? But I do think he's the most likely winner. He has got to prove that he jumps around Cheltenham, and I wouldn't want to pay sort of, you know, 1.6 or 1.55 to find out, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not in the Champ knocker camp at the moment, I must admit. I thought there were viable reasons why he got beaten at Cheltenham. You say there was a couple of stats. The Challow Hurdle winners have a pretty wretched record in that race. His age was against him a little bit as well, and he got beaten by a horse that, you know, was obviously running for the sponsors, and, you know, was absolutely 100% on the day, and produced a really good performance in his own right. So I don't think he lost a lot in defeat that day. You know, and he certainly carried forward a good level of form to fences. So I do like him as a horse and a project.
I think the other thing on him, what I was against him for the festival, was he was quite a hothead last year. I remember when he won the handicap at Newbury before going on and winning the Challow, and he pulled his way to the front, and he was just a boil over horse for me. And he actually did it quite well, didn't he? The prelims at the festival, he was just probably a quicker horse, if anything. But I don't know. I've just got it. I'm just looking at him now. He's 4.0 for the RSA, and I can. If those in behind do rock up, I can find myself backing something else. It's all price related, isn't it? If he rocked up, I suddenly thought, oh hello, you know, that's a fair enough price on the shape of it. But as I stand at the moment, I just kind of want to be against him going back to the festival. But I absolutely think he'll win tomorrow. Anything else to add to this race, Sam?
No, other than that, it's baffling how Midnight Shadow hasn't managed to shed his maiden tag over fences just yet, because he's a horse of, you know, immense potential and quality, and I'm just staggered that he hasn't managed to win a race yet. But he has bumped into 1 or 2 nice types, and he could just be the type just to keep in mind for a handicap chase in the new year. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see him rock up in the 3 miler, perhaps.
I wonder if that's what he just shaped that way at Haydock. I thought 3 miles might just be that going. He tried it over hurdles, didn't he? Or he was.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if he quite got home on that occasion, but yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Should we kick on to 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
Actually, put a horse up for a bet, because essentially, before we've had a little anti-post look ahead to the RSA, we're half swerving the any plays in the Dipper. The 2 o'clock at Cheltenham was a nice open handicap chase, grade 3 contest, 2 mile 4.5. Kalashnikov heads the betting 5.0. Oh, that was brutal at Newbury for Kalashnikov lovers.
Painful.
Sapage, who didn't you back him in his last race?
Yeah, I was quite sweet on him. In the Caspian Caviar.
Magic Saint's a point bigger. He's 8.0 as well. St Calvados, I couldn't back him over this trip personally. Interesting. OK Corral rocks up. I thought I didn't think that he would necessarily run. Barry wasn't jocked up when I was looking at the entries, but he's 11.0. Then we're into the double figures. You kick us off, Sam.
Okay. Well, obviously we've touched on Kalashnikov, who I think would be towards the top of my shortlist for the race, because I still think he's got potential, even off a £6 higher mark for his narrow Newbury defeat. He lost a shoe that day. He had his pocket picked a little bit by Old Grangewood. Thought he got an exceptional ride that day, Old Grangewood. And I think back on an undulating track, I think that sort of nullifies Old Grangewood a little bit, he says, probably tempting fate, and perhaps brings Kalashnikov into a little bit more of a player, given that he can cope with those sort of venues a little bit more perhaps than Old Grangewood, who does like a flat surface. I think he's definitely a player, and I think it'd be rude to sort of ignore the claims of Cepage as well, because I was quite taken with his performance at Cheltenham, even in defeat. He just missed one out when the pace was quickening, really, and he's sort of coming back at them again at the line. And I think that mistake sort of down the back would have paid to a lot of horses, but he had the quality, and obviously he's finished second to Frodon, second to Riders on the Storm as well. So it's two really tremendous efforts on his CV in recent times, even though we haven't seen a lot of him. He's been a little brittle. But that last performance as well, I thought that was quite a taking performance. As long as that hasn't taken too much out of him, just 2.5 weeks later, I think he's very much shortlist material as well. So I'd be happy with a split stakes play on Kalashnikov and Cepage. You're betting two quality horses. Kalashnikov's speed figure last time out at Newbury was terrific. He just about tops my list for this race, and Cepage has obviously got loads of course form on the new course and chased home Frodon here and ran really well behind Warthog. So two no-brainer picks really.
Cepage is the one of the shorter prices, and I think 8.0 is very fair, to be honest. Who I made a little note that day where he that error that you say, and then the way he stuck on, and he was still beaten. It was a great performance by Warthog, and your eye was drawn to those two fighting it out, and without that mistake, I'm not certain he would have won necessarily. But do you remember? I'm sure it was Frodon, Sam, who made an error. The Bet Victor, as it was in the middle of November, at a key point, then came back and won the Caspian Caviar.
Yeah.
And it was Sam Tristan-Davis who said, without that error 3 or 4 out, who knows what would have happened. And it was akin to Cepage. If you lose ground at that point in the race, it can really hinder your chances. So I sort of made a mental note to say, don't give up on Cepage next time.
No. And he was beaten less than, he was only beaten 2.5 lengths, wasn't he? It wasn't as if he was beaten out of sight, and he just kept digging and fighting. I wonder whether Charlie Deutsch could have had that race again. I just wonder whether it was his most efficient ride, really. But anyway, that's by the by. It's history now. But I think there are reasons for taking Cepage and going forward with him.
There are two others that I want to mention. Lawler is one of them, who I actually put up for the Caspian Caviar. I think he was taken out on the count of the ground. I'm not sure where I am with him, but I can make a case for him being well treated, going over this trip off a mark of 149, first-time cheek pieces on. I'm not sure where I am with this, which is why I'm going to ask you, where are you with yard form? Is it relevant with such a small number of horses when it comes to such a good horse we know that Lawler is, and we know that Kaylee Woolacott has got the best out of in the past? Yeah,
it's a yard pretty much that revolves around one horse now, doesn't it? Unfortunately, just given the way it's gone, I wouldn't read too much into it, to be honest. There's not enough of a sample size to be able to judge whether they're in form or out. You sometimes get a nice little lead with I don't know, Samuel Drinkwater, perhaps. He'd been a case in point. A smallish yard doesn't have a lot of runners, but you could just see going into Howling Milan, perhaps at Newbury on Saturday, that they were running into a bit of form, and they were unlucky not to land a nice handicap hurdle with Howling Milan. But unfortunately, Kaylee just hasn't run enough horses for us to get a gauge on whether they're in form or out. So I think you just have to treat Lawler as a very specific case, an individual case, and if you fancy him, back him. He's certainly a tall enough price for a horse of his ability. He's yet to prove it a little bit over this trip. Whether that's going to be his particular. My problem with Lawler is that you keep backing him at big prices, hoping he's going to deliver rather than expecting he's going to deliver. So unless I've seen him deliver, then that would be my slight reservation, really. And with the best of respect to Kaylee, she's taking on the likes of Venetia Williams, even A.B. Murphy, Paul Nicholls, Nicky Henderson. They are top trainers, and they are very used to winning races of this type, whereas Lawler isn't in recent times. So I can understand you want to make a case at 15.0, 17.0, whatever. I think I could certainly see that, and I didn't think he ran too badly at Exeter at all. So he's got to find some improvement for me, and hopefully that comes from the step up in trip and the cheap pieces.
Yeah, he's 15.0. He's not a horse I think I'm backing at this stage. To be honest, I wanted to pick your brains half for a bit of advice. He's that horse I kind of want to talk about with someone else, just to go, am I mad?
Well, my slight worry is the up in trip and the cheap pieces angle, which isn't something that I'm particularly a big fan of. If it was still 2 miles and the cheap pieces went on just to try and get him to concentrate and have a little bit more zest and give Aidan Coleman a bit of help, then I could see that. But then going up in trip, and it's going to be a good stamina test. It's a decent field here. Good crowd of horses that have all been around Cheltenham plenty of times and know how, what it takes to win a race of this nature. So it would just worry me a little bit that they're going into the unknown a bit tripwise and with the cheap pieces on.
A horse I will be backing at a bigger price, 17.0 is Ballyhill, course and distance winner. Won this a couple of years ago, was third last year. I'm personally, I'm massive on horses for courses. And look, he has formed away from Cheltenham, but he's been third on his last couple of starts here. He's won this race before. He's suddenly backed out. He's £7 lower than last year. Now, he went up to a grade 2. He was hammered by Clanders Oboe at Ascot, fine. And then he has been very disappointing on his last 3 starts. If he'd come back and run at Cheltenham again and been disappointing, I wouldn't be backing him. But I'm willing at this sort of price to go back at Cheltenham off a mark of 137. I can, forward thinking wise, I can see that looking silly, 17.0. So I will have a few quid on him in the place market as well.
Yeah, I'd rather much rather back him, win and place than I would Lawler. I think you can make 1 or 2 excuses for him as well. I don't think he came back sound from Hereford. He made bad mistakes that day, and that probably contributed to his wide margin defeat. 2 miles at Kelso, that wouldn't really play to his strengths. And Aintree, I think you can always forgive a horse for not, perhaps going well in a race like the Topham at the end of the season. Especially when he's had 1 or 2 grueling races around Cheltenham. January the 1st last year, as you say, behind ASO, then behind Ciro de Luc, Trials Day. So, he had been to the well a few times. So I think you can excuse that. Yeah, I definitely see sitting at the bottom of the weights, Twiston Davis in handicap chases around Cheltenham, traditionally very much a trainer you want to be with. My only slight concern, Tom, would be the stable form. They just seem to have gone off a cliff a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, they've only really had riders on the storm to shout about, haven't they, in recent days? No, I see that. But then, you're that would worry me more if you're playing at the top of the market. But
yeah,
you sort of forgive yourself at that sort of price, personally.
And I backed Vienna Court at Newby the other day, and perhaps if she'd jumped the last, she might have won. So I suppose
she would have done, I think.
Yeah.
I followed your mate Andy Holding on that, I think. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, we were both sweet on that.
Been playing their Sipage or even split for you, Kalashnikov Sipage?
I think I'd probably go 7 units the one, 3 units the other, if you know what I mean, and play that way rather than betting each way, I think.
235 at Cheltenham we'll kick on to, which is a handicap hurdle, staying handicap hurdle. I'm going to kick off with this, if you don't mind. I just got a little angle to flag up, and a horse that I will be backing. I have a lot of respect for Scandyberg, who is the loveliest horse at home. Not that counts for much, but he is absolutely smashing. And he's pretty good as well. He's kicked on quite nicely, and I could see why in the sort of progressive camp, Goodbye Dancer progressives for his new yard, they were right towards the top of the betting. And don't get me wrong, I am not opposing those at any rate. I could easily on another day back them, but I just wanted to in these staying handicap hurdles, particularly the Potemps at Cheltenham, which has a history of ex-chasers, not even ex-chasers, but horses who have been over fences coming back, not always off a lesser hurdle mark actually, but coming back and winning and running really well. The Storyteller is one that's been flagged up a good bit for the Potemps, I know, this year, and he fits that. He is lower over hurdles. But this race as well has gone in 2 of the last 3 years to horses that have been over fences before and now coming back and tackling smaller obstacles. A Petit Soin, Cogri was another one of those in recent years. So I thought that of all the horses that have been over fence, I just thought Beware the Bear was very easy to make a case for. He's a winner at the track. He's a mark of 155, which is a wee bit lower than it is over fences. He didn't exactly run a bad race behind Darasha Counter in Ladbrokes Trophy. Yeah. And at 9.0, I think he's a fair old play. And again, I just think that angle is sometimes, I wonder if half the time people see it as a negative, whereas actually you could argue it in the positive camp.
Yeah.
So I'll Beware the Bear for all I could back about 8 in this, but he'd be my top one. Sam?
Yeah, and I'm going to take your theory and run with it and go with the Jam Man, who's only 7, but he's packed quite a lot into his short career so far. He just looks totally revitalised. I mean, to be fair, ever since he was disappointing at Downpatrick back in the summer, he's just turned it around in incredible style. He came over here, he won his Southall Novice Handicap Chase, landing a touch at 9-4. That was off a mark of 114. Races here off 144. Now, Ronan McNally has gained a little bit of a reputation for a trainer that doesn't just fit showers and people's sinks. He's obviously a very good horse trainer as well. And the Jam Man has just gone through the grades in the blink of an eye, really. The last 6 months has turned into a very, very potent staying handicapper. After winning at Navan last time, the trainer drew comparisons with Paisley Park, starting his sort of meteoric rise off a mark of 140. So he's thinking that way. He had this horse in the Relkiel hurdle as well. For some reason, this horse has just taken off. I don't know the reasons. He's just matured, and he's just clicked. And maybe, you know, coming over to Southwell, you know, it's a very shrewd tactical move. You come over to Southwell, a bit of Nottinghamshire air, and it just seems to revitalise the Jam Man. And he's turned into a world beater all of a sudden. And he beat a very, very well handicapped horse in 2A Permis, who was running off a real basement mark that day compared to his chasing mark. So he spread eagle a good field in that Navan handicap as well. The circuit time was very strong. So I'm going to take a bit of a chance with him at double figures. I think he's topping my shortlist anyway, and there's any number in behind him as well. I mean, I like the claims of Ask Dylan, Scandiberg, I respect. I think he's going the right way. Rapper is a horse I've got a lot of time for. I think stepping up to 3 at Market Raisin was the making of him. I could see him winning. And Goodbye Dancer looks a very intriguing plot just at the bottom of the weights. Connor Brace was jocked up on him at the 5-day stage, and obviously Paddy Brennan's taken the ride now with Connor switching to Ask Dylan. I think that's obviously, you know, quite a tip in itself, really, the fact that they're prepared to run him out of the handicap, and he's got good Cheltenham form on soft ground. So I could totally get why he would be fancied, but I'll take a bit of a chance with the Jam Man. He's also 3 from 3 for Aidan Coleman as well, so that's another little positive in his favour.
I think that was the key point, wasn't it, last time, where he actually came on soft ground against decent horses in a wintry campaign and actually went, yeah, I'm the real deal. And I thought, and with that chasing angle, he was second on my shortlist. So there you go. Would you ever, Sam, get the matchbook market up if you do fancy 4 or 5? It's something I'll do every now and again if I'm sat in the Racing TV studio, because we're allowed to do that in there, I think. Aren't we? Yeah, I think we are.
Anyway.
I'll get a few up, and I'll just go. I'll get that matchbook market up and just go, right, I know I fancy 5 in this, and I'll lessen my stakes on all of them, but I just might want to have a few on side. Is that something you'll do, or will you force yourself?
Yeah, definitely. You know, rather than the each way angle, really. I would probably go that way. I mean, how many runners is there? 14. Not a great each way race, is it? So I'd probably take 2, 3. You know, and if the prices were big enough, I might even back 4. You know, and I'd have a few running for me. Certainly, if I could see as well, perhaps a little vulnerability in the favourite, I would definitely go that way rather than laying the favourite. I mean, nobody ever walked into the pub and said, "Oh, I got 50 quid out of the favourite," you know, in the big race today. And they'll go, "Oh well, yeah, well done, John, nice work," you know. But if you go into the pub and say, "Oh, about the 12-to-1 winner of the Cheltenham 235," they go, "Oh, what a great aftertime you are, but congratulations," you know. So
just don't tell you 5 others.
I don't think I've ever gone out on a dog walk after watching the racing celebrating the fact I took 100 quid out of the favourite. You know, never. But I've been in good terms with myself when I've backed, you know, a double figure price. So I know you're obviously not backing double figure price if you're backing 3 or 4, but it would certainly be a way I'd look to go, especially when you've got some unexposed handicappers. I mean, you can make a good solid case for a number of these. And you might be able to get double figures about them. So yeah, I'll probably go that way. In short.
Yeah, no, but everyone approaches it differently. So I think it's interesting to get an angle on it. But I do with 14. I agree. I'll probably have 2 or 3 on side here, and Beware the Bear and the Jam Man will definitely be 2 of them.
Yeah.
The Relkiel 310 is over 2 mile 4.5. I want to handle on this. Emitom is the horse I'm most looking forward to seeing. 6 runners, 6.0. I don't think I can personally. Look, he's got some phenomenal form, and look, who knows? Could he be a horse that if they continue down this route, he emerges as a challenger to Paisley Park, possibly. But he's a sit on the fence jobby for me. What about you?
Yeah, I can certainly see the case for him. He's untapped potential in a lot of respects. It'll be a big ask after 9 months off the track to come and beat some race fit horses here around a track that he's unproven at. I think if he manages to do it, then that's a huge step forward for him, and he does emerge as a possible to trouble Paisley Park. But it's a big if just yet. I'd want to see him do it first. I can sort of understand people making a case for William Henry, got good course form, but I just wonder whether he's just having a little bit of a saunter around off that wind up with a view to a handicap at Cheltenham. I'm gonna side with my favourite mare in training, Roxana, who is 1 from 1 at Cheltenham. Obviously, we all know she got pretty fortunate at Cheltenham back in March, but look, she did manage to win. She's been a little bit unlucky at Aintree. I think she's been there 3 times, finished second 3 times to the likes of Santini if the cap fits, and top notch. I think she deserves a big one. I think this is sort of a perfect trip ground. She's fit. She's had 6-7 weeks off. I think the Skeltons will have had their eye on this race for some little time, and I didn't think she got the greatest of rides at Ascot last time over the trip. She was a bit wide and just didn't really seem to appreciate Ascot particularly. I think going back to Cheltenham, fingers crossed that she can get a 1 next to her name, which she deserves. She's a grand mare, big strong mare, and hopefully she'll operate well in the conditions.
I didn't want to be with Janica, but I wasn't strong enough. I know this is a betting podcast, but we'd rather always be open and honest. I can't see myself parting with any money here personally, unless the prices change dramatically as they are. Where are you with Janica?
Good quality horse, obviously got plenty of form around here over fences. Be no surprise to see him win. I thought it was a pretty taking performance, given that he had. I thought he had 1 or 2 questions to answer at Sandown last time. You might say that this test would it be his optimum. I'm not entirely certain. He was impressive at Exeter, but I think he beat Dollos that day, and that was Dollos' Gold Cup. So I just wonder whether he's just got a bit more quality to find over hurdles, really. But it's a ploy that they've managed to pull off a number of times, switching these horses back to hurdles from fences. We get a view of a horse in our mind. Oh no, he's a chaser, or he's a hurdler, whatever. But Nicky Henderson's very keen just to swap and change the horse's routine and the way that he progresses through a campaign, and he does it with great success. So I'd respect him. I don't know if I'd want to back him at 3.5 or 3.25 or whatever he is, but I'll just stick with Roxana. She's proven around Cheltenham over hurdles, and hopefully she'll get a nice race drop in her lap for once again, perhaps.
I've backed him for Janica. I backed him for the Ryanair, Sam. It's one of my anti-post plays.
Yeah.
And this just concerns me a bit for it personally. So just because I wonder if will they mix it up? I don't know now. I didn't expect this to happen. If you, I think he, because that Ryanair can cut up so much. For all connections, may well have footpad going that way now off the back of what he did in the. Well, I say connections owners, but
I would think this is probably quite driven by Anthony Bromley. I would think, who may have seen this race on the calendar, may have seen that it's a nice prize, it's a grade 2 over hurdles. He may not feel that the 2.5 to 3 mile section, the 2.5 to 3 mile hurdling. I'm trying to think of the word I'm searching for now. That sphere is particularly well stocked at the moment. So he might feel that these are opportunities that he can exploit with Janica. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
no, I see. Yeah, fair enough. And perhaps they will revert to larger obstacles. We'll see. Let's move on to Musselburgh. Got a couple of good races as ever on New Year's Day at Musselburgh. 140, first of all, is the Ulriki handicap chase. As You Like is 6.0, Cracking Destiny 6.0, Nutswell 7.0, Fixed Rate 8.0. And they really go up in ones off the back of that. We don't have good old. Not Graffan was entered, but he doesn't go.
I know. Scenes. There must be something wrong with him. Can't believe he's not running. It's the default on New Year's Day, isn't he?
Mind blown. So there you go. Good. Give something else a chance. I'll lead us off if I can. I thought at a price at double figures, you can get 12.0 about Sporting Press. The hood goes back on. Quite like that. Hasn't been seen in it over this track in the last couple of starts. Has been hammered by 2 good horses, Cracking Destiny and Deathly Sacra, who subsequently followed up. He is a course and distance winner, and it was just more the angle. Billy Garrett has ridden him before. He's back on, taking off 5. The angle of, I can make a case for those towards the top of the betting, but I think it's far safer for me to be playing this horse at double figures in the win and place market, and you just never know. But a fair old swing back in his favour with Cracking Destiny, who went up 10 for that win a couple of starts ago. Sporting Press is £1 higher. I'm not saying that this trip is going to suit Sporting Press more than Cracking Destiny or any stretch, but I think this horse will still be in there pitching going down to the last is what I'm hoping for, and I think he's a really safe play, quite a confident one in the place market as well, and you never know win wise either. So he'd be my selection in the race, Sporting Press.
Yeah, I certainly like his rider. I think I was with him last time, and he just couldn't live with Defi Sacra, but there's no disgrace in that performance, was there? I like the same form line. I think Cracking Destiny looks a really good purchase for Alistair Williams. Picked him up for 35k. And he absolutely sauntered him, didn't he? Last month. He's obviously earned a £10 rise for that, but connections have been very clear. He's not going to run in between, and this has been the plan for a while. So I think he's very much one that you've got to have on your shortlist, irrespective of whether he's going to be favoured or not. I think he's definitely a horse that you save on if you play around in that race, or you side with, because he's still off 125, still looks very tastily handicapped. So he's probably the number one pick, and I think, as you like as well, I think that's an intriguing runner for John Joe O'Neill on New Year's Day to go up to Musselburgh and Junior to go up and ride it. So I think third to Benny's King looks a very fair piece of form to me at Newbury. He probably wants decent ground, as we saw through the summer when he was progressing, but he should get reasonable ground. I would have thought at Musselburgh, good to soft. It usually drains pretty well there as well, so I think he's probably a pretty big player as well, as you like. So I'll probably bet around those two.
John Joe O'Neill has had a fair few runners at Musselburgh in his time, but in the last 5 years, not had any. So I noticed that. I thought, hello, that's not something you'd see all the time. I sort of found it hard to split those at the top, and therefore went for a bit more of a safety play with Sporting Press. So there you go. But they, as you like. Who would you have as favourite between them if you had to pick?
Cracking Destiny with the course form. I know he's got a little bit to prove over the trip, but he wasn't stopping the other day. He's
won over 2.5 before.
Yeah, he did show quite a lot of pace, didn't he, on his debut? But I can't believe that 2.5 on just good to soft ground will be stretching him too much.
And then the 2:15 at Musselburgh is the Hogmanay handicap hurdle. At the top of the betting, you got Ashington around about 3.5, 6.0 for Normal Norman, who won the race last year and will win it again. Snookered is half a point bigger. Newtown Boy even 7.0. So Chauvelin, similar sort of price to that as well. Go on, you kick us off, Sam. Where are you looking?
Well, just a point on Normal. What an incredible racehorse he is. He wins over 7 furlongs. He wins over a mile. He then, finishes placed over 2 miles on the flat. He's just an extraordinary, versatile horse, and probably one in the eye, really, for those who like to pigeonhole horses into a certain sphere. He's very much rallies against that, doesn't he? So I think he is very much shortlist material as well, especially in these colours. Obviously the owner loves winners at Musselburgh, and this will have been the target for some little time for Normal Norman. I also think it will have been the target for Ashington as well, who ever since he won that course and distance sort of novice hurdle back in early November, I would have thought the Quins will have had this in mind for him. He zipped round the track that day. He's ridden fairly aggressively. He looks as though he's really appreciated the hurdles. Very useful flat horse in his own right, rated 90 at one point. So I think this looks a really good target for him. Brian Hughes has been booked for some time. I know he was sort of 6.0, I think, in the anti-post market, and I thought that was very fair if you knew that he was a definite runner. So he's just a horse I've had on my mind for this race for a while. So I'll stick with him. But Norman be the one to beat for me.
Just a question for you. I just had a quick look at the last 10 winners, and I think only one of them, who was David Pipe's mare, who has won on handicap debut before. I tend to be quite often, if it's going to be testing ground, I'd be quite anti-handicap debutants, younger horses against some of the old season professionals. This isn't going to be. But equally, this race doesn't have a history of throwing up handicap debutant winners necessarily. For all Norman had only run once in a handicap last year. But when he came to win this, where do you stand on that? Or do you have no hard and fast rule with handicap debutants?
I think he comes from slightly different angle. That he'd run in a lot of competitive middle distance handicaps as well. For a young horse, he'd been to the wars, on the flat a little bit. So he should be a little bit more robust and battle hardened. He was ridden pretty aggressively. I know he was 3 on when we last saw him, but Danny Cook was keen to sort of press on with him and bustle up those that were making the running. So he had full confidence in him, A, seeing out the trip on very soft ground that day, and B, jumping well enough to go and win a race of that nature. It is always a little bit of a question mark. You've got a few good course horses in here against him as well, even though he's won at the track. Fisher Green runs well here, certainly Normal Norman, and I think there's a couple of little dark horses that could easily run well at big prices. Ligale Felice, for instance, who had a little warm-up on the Fibersan last time, and I think Sir Chauvelin as well, who ran really well behind Raymond Tusk at Newcastle, does a lot of his winning at Musselburgh as well over staying trips. I think he's an intriguing runner as a price as well, but I'll just side with Ashington because I think a horse that was rated 90 on the flat and sitting towards the foot of the handicap with Brian Hughes on, he's always going to attract plenty of support, I think.
Yeah, so Chauvelin won this a couple of years ago, and Normal Norman won it last year. The reason I'm in the Normal Norman camp is I was covering Kempton when he won the other day, and it was ridiculous, really, because he looked like he had no right to win over a mile, but he did. And I then was talking to Rachel Candelora, who works on our channel, and she said, surely this is just going to line him up for a handicap back over hurdles. And I went back through the form and saw, well, of course, the perfect stepping stone in 1 month time, 28 days to the day, is the race he won last year. And I just thought, when you have it in mind, when connections have it in mind, and you think you've jumped on that bandwagon, I'm not going to desert him now. So
no.
I think and I was so impressed with the way he did it. I think he's only getting better, and he's not that much higher. So he's very much the one for me in their Normal. Anything to add?
No, I think that's fine. I can certainly see your case there, and I if I did bet the race, depending on how they do bet on the day, I would certainly factor Normal into it. I can certainly see where you're coming from.
Do you want to talk about VAR?
No, not especially. No, having been at Anfield on, when was it now? Sunday. We'll sweep that under the carpet, Tom.
Quite right too. But good to see they're playing so well, because I'd put you ahead of Spurs for a top 4. There you go.
Well, we certainly gave you a good game at Molineux, and most of your lads resorted to hacking down Adama Traore and getting yellow carded for it, including the England captain, whose conduct wasn't particularly well received by the Molineux masses.
You robbed, I'm afraid, and apologies for that. But this is why
we don't mean it, do you?
This is why we leave it to Ali to do the match for football point. We're otherwise
too biased.
Exactly, far too biased. Right, best bet, Sam. What have we got? My New Year's Day best bet is going to be Normal Norman, 6.0. I really fancy him, so he is my best bet in the Hogmanay handicap hurdle. Who's your best bet, Sam?
I'll go with a jam man. It's asking for trouble trying to nominate a best bet in a race where you fancy 3 or 4, but I do think there's a good bit more to come from him. So fingers crossed he can go well at a double figure price
in that staying handicap hurdle at Cheltenham. Good stuff. I hope you enjoy your New Year's frivolities. What you got planned?
When you get to 50, Tom, you're just grateful you'd probably be in bed for 9:30. So whether there's any frivolities or not, I don't know whether I can raise myself for that. But I'm off for the day tomorrow, so I'm going to look forward to seeing a bit of racing. I might actually go to the dark side and go and watch West Bromwich Albion versus Leeds United, because it could be a bit tasty. And to be honest, I dislike both clubs, so it'd be, I'm going to be happy either way, aren't I?
There could be about 500 goals as well at the moment, so there you go. I don't know whether I'd be more surprised you go to watch West Brom or the fact that you've mentioned 50, because tell you what, maybe it's that lighting, but
it's the lighting. Yeah, you always have a lamp above you because it just darns out the wrinkles, mate.
Tell me about it. Good stuff. I've got a board game night, so that's
good. What's the board game of choice?
We are playing a board game called Catan, and let me tell you, it's excellent. Takes about 2.5 hours to play. No talking. Perfect.
No talking. Good. Nice social game then, is it?
Very seriously.
Yeah. No cards against humanity for you then.
Oh, that's a bit risky for me. Don't do that. That's a bit naughty. I'm not like that.
One tip for 2020: don't play that with the in-laws. Yeah, we're still undergoing counselling.
Definitely.
Don't play with the in-laws. Not with the mind of your father-in-law, anyway.
Yeah. No. Good stuff, Sam. Happy New Year. Thanks very much indeed for all of that. Good luck with all those bets. Happy New Year to those of you at home watching. And good luck with the New Year's Day punting. Happy New Year all. Bye-bye from the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast.